Hey, quick recommendation. If you're looking to upgrade your wardrobe, check out Hypernatural. These are honestly the most comfortable shirts I've come across. They're made with Supima cotton, which is like the softest cotton in the world. But they also weave in jadestone for cooling. Sounds weird, but it works incredibly well. Keeps you 3 to 5 degrees cooler, naturally odor resistant, and they're 95% biodegradable, so no plastic polyester nonsense. They're sold at Nordstrom. Forbes and Esquire love them. I got you the best deal they offer right now, 20% off with my code 10MM at hypernaturalstyle.com. Code 10MM. And it's very important you use the code so that you get the discount. hypernaturalstyle.com. October 24th, 1988, Greenfield, Massachusetts. A 19-year-old grocery store clerk puts on a hockey mask, grabs a knife, and walks to his victim's house. He's about to make his favorite horror movie a reality. The victim, an 18-year-old college student who made one fatal mistake. She tried to understand him. Sharon Gregory was doing everything right. Fall semester 1988 at Greenfield Community College, and the 18-year-old psychology major was keeping up with coursework, hanging out with her identical twin sister Cheryl, and working on what she probably thought was a fascinating assignment. She'd chosen to do a psychological evaluation on someone she knew around town, someone who made her twin sister very uncomfortable, someone named Mark Branch. Mark Branch was a 19-year-old grocery store clerk who was obsessed with horror movies, specifically the violence within these horror movies. But calling it an obsession doesn't really capture what was going on here. The clerk at Video Expo 1 in Greenfield would later say that Mark rented strictly gore, period. The gorier, the better. And we're not talking about someone who likes scary movies. I like scary movies. We're talking about someone who studied them like other people studied textbooks. Mark had a special interest with the Friday the 13th movie series, a franchise of slasher films surrounding a character named Jason Voorhees, who wore hockey masks and stalked his victims. And when police would eventually search his apartment, what they found was beyond disturbing. They reportedly recovered 75 slasher films, 64 killer-related books, 12 hockey masks, 3 knives, and a machete. This was less of a fan collection, more like a blueprint. Throughout his earlier teenage years, Mark had terrified and repulsed his female classmates. So when Sharon Gregory decided to do a psychological profile on him, whether for a class assignment or personal interest, she was stepping into dangerous territory. And Mark knew about it. He knew she was analyzing him, picking his brain apart, writing down her conclusions about what made him tick. Greenfield Police Chief David McCarthy would later reveal the motive. As far as he was concerned, the bottom line motive was that Sharon Gregory had in her possession a psychological profile of Mark Branch, and that profile was wanted badly by Mark Branch. He didn't like being studied, he didn't like being figured out, and he wanted that profile back. On October 24th, 1988, Mark put on a pair of black boots and a hockey mask to resemble Jason, and he set off to Sharon's apartment. It was a Monday afternoon. Halloween was just days away. The town would soon be preparing for parades and trick-or-treating, but Mark Branch had his own celebration planned. What exactly happened inside Sharon's apartment, we'll never fully know. Sharon's twin sister, Cheryl, found her body in the upstairs bathroom. The scene was horrific. Sharon had been stabbed multiple times in her head, neck, and chest. Definitely not a quick kill. This was fury. This was someone acting out every violent scene they'd memorized from dozens of slasher films. Cheryl was able to tell police that they needed to look into someone Sharon knew named Mark, who she said had made her uncomfortable by the way he looked at her. She knew immediately. The twins had probably talked about him at length, how weird he was, and about how he made her feel. And now, her sister was gone forever. A neighbor verified that someone fitting Mark's description had been at the home for a few minutes that night. Within days, tips started flooding in. People around Greenfield knew about Mark. They knew about his obsession. They knew he'd talked about wanting to kill. Police searched his apartment and they found a setup, almost a shrine, dedicated to gore and horror, with multiple items relating to Jason Voorhees. But Mark was gone. Police received another tip from someone who reported that they believed they'd found Mark's car abandoned 13 miles outside of Greenfield near Buckland. The car had blood on the front seat and the front console, sparking a massive manhunt. After several days, when Mark still wasn't found, and with Halloween quickly approaching, the rest of the town was on edge and terrified. Think about that. You've got a guy dressed up as Jason Voorhees running around somewhere, and Halloween is in less than a week. Media coverage only fueled the fear in town, with the parade and annual events downtown being canceled and trick-or-treating moved to daylight hours at the insistence of concerned parents. Parents who had grown up watching Friday the 13th movies were now living in one. Halloween came and went without incident, but Mark was still out there. Over a month after Sharon's murder, on November 28th, police received a tip from a local hunter who was out hunting deer during the first week of deer season. He had found Mark's body in the woods, hanging from his belt and shoelaces from a pine tree. His death was tentatively ruled a suicide, and the medical examiner determined that his death had taken place shortly after he murdered Sharon. So here's what the police believe happened. Mark Branch killed Sharon Gregory on October 24th, fled to the woods in nearby Buckland, where his car was found, and then took his own life probably within days of the murder. But his body wasn't discovered for over a month. The town of Greenfield lived in terror for weeks, canceling most of the Halloween celebrations, keeping the kids inside at night, reporting sightings of Mark all over New England. And the whole time, he was already dead, hanging from a tree 13 miles away. The psychological profile that Sharon wrote on Mark was never found. Did he destroy it before he died? Did he have it with him in the woods? We don't know. McCarthy said Branch's particular interest in Jason was part of the motive for the stabbing, explaining that police had confirmed Mark had a mental illness of some kind that was confirmed by his parents. McCarthy later elaborated on what he believed drove Mark to kill. He was so entrenched with Jason that he had to have the final chapter in his own feelings. He wanted to know what it felt like to live out that part of Jason. This wasn't about the profile alone. This was about a young man who had become so detached from reality that he believed he could become the character he'd watched kill dozens of people on screen. The media did not let up on the angle of Mark's horror movie obsession and the Friday the 13th aspect. This case became ammunition for every parent, politician, and activist who believed that horror movies were corrupting youth. And honestly, it's hard not to see why they made that connection. A guy who collected 12 hockey masks and 75 slasher films puts on a Jason costume and stabs someone to death. The correlation is right there. But here's the thing. Millions of people watched Friday the 13th movies in the 80s. Millions of teenagers rented those same films from video stores. They didn't become killers. Mark Branch had something else going on. He had documented mental illness. He'd been under psychiatric care for years. One report mentioned he'd sought treatment at a Boston psychiatric hospital after leaving a private school 6 weeks into the school year back in 1984. The movies didn't create Mark Branch, but they gave him a template. They gave him a costume. They gave him a fantasy to step into when his reality became unbearable. And Sharon Gregory, who was trying to understand him through her psychology studies, became the victim of that fantasy. When told of Mark's death, Sharon's father, Edward, said they were glad it was over. It was time to forget and carry on as best they can. But how do you carry on after something like this? Cheryl Gregory found her identical twin sister murdered in their bathroom. She'd have to live with that image in her mind forever. Their parents lost a daughter to senseless violence right before Halloween, and then had to wait over a month while the town lived in fear before learning the killer had been dead almost the entire time. There was no trial, no conviction, no moment in court where the Gregory family could finally face Mark Branch and get some answers. Local newspapers even petitioned the courts to release documents about the murder, evidence taken from Mark's home and the crime scene. But Mark's family fought to keep those details private. So we're left with fragments, with police statements and news reports, and a community that still talks about the Halloween that got canceled. Sharon Gregory was 18 years old. She was smart, studying psychology, probably hoping to help people understand mental illness someday. Instead, she became a case study herself, a cautionary tale about getting too close to darkness while trying to shine a light on it. That is the story of Mark Branch, the grocery store clerk who thought he was Jason Voorhees. Thanks for listening today, and keep binging away if that's what you're doing right now. Quickly, here's an email from Marcus in Philadelphia. Subject, sleep schedule versus serial killers. Hi, Joe. I've started listening to your show at night, which has completely ruined my sleep schedule. I go to bed thinking about unsolved mysteries and wake up wondering why I now check my locks twice. Do you ever spook yourself after recording a particularly unsettling story late at night? Or are you at the point where nothing phases you anymore? And Marcus, I got to tell you, I definitely am phased. I'm locking multiple locks on my doors every single night, and I do a quick check before bed. I go through and make sure all the windows are locked, all the doors are locked, and I'm safely secure in my house. And my refrigerator has this habit of making a noise. I think it's the ice maker, but it makes this noise that I can't get used to it. Every time I hear it and it's quiet in the house and it's just that noise, I automatically assume someone's breaking in. So your answer is, it does faze me a whole lot. And honestly, that can be on a normal night, not even a night where I'm doing the podcast stuff. Thanks for the email. Hey, if this is your first time listening, hit subscribe right now so that you never miss a story. Leave a review and tell other true crime fans about the show. You can check out 10minutemurder.com to learn more about the podcast, read the blog, and contact me. The episodes I'm working on that are coming up, you can expect those pretty soon. The Shoe Fetish Slayer, inside Jerry Bruto's House of Horrors. That's a serial killer obsessed with women's shoes. And then also Betrayed by Blood, the daughter who orchestrated her family's slaughter. I'm Joe. I'm the host. Thank you for listening. Until next time. So I've been adding this microalgae called ZevoLife to my routine. And honestly, it's kind of like a cheat code for nutrition. It's over 50% plant protein, like actually bioavailable protein your body can use, plus fiber, antioxidants, all the essential amino acids. Just 1 teaspoon a day. People are saying their energy's better, their skin cleared up, digestion improved. It's getting crazy 5-star reviews. The cool thing is, it uses 80% less water than soy to produce, so it's sustainable too. I got you 30% off, which is the highest discount they offer. Use code 10MM at zivo.life. That's ZIVO.life. Code 10MM. And it's very important to use the code so that you get the discount. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's literally no risk.